This is the first segment for the Parabola Master Bath project. We're going to design the rooms, the doors, and the windows for the project. If you take a look at the floor plan, we're going to go through and create the shower area, the toilet area, the master bath, and then the closet, as you can see here in the 3D view. Let's go ahead and jump into the program and get started. For this video, I'm using Chief Architect Premiere version X7. If you're using the interiors version of Chief Architect, I'll try and point out some of the differences. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to begin with the interior wall. And I'm going to set my default. I'm going to use all 6-inch walls as I draw my design. So I'm going to double click on my wall tool, and from my wall types I'm going to choose the interior 6-inch wall here. And if you look at the properties of this wall, there's really 3 layers. You can see in the 2D diagram here. We have a drywall area, our framing area, which is a 2x6, and then drywall on the other side. There's a variety of wall types you can choose from the program, or you can customize your own wall types. Now that I have our wall type selected as interior 6 for the default, I'm just going to begin drawing out the shape of the room. So using the wall type, I'm just going to right click and approximately create the shape that I'm after. And to begin with, I'm just going to create a rectangular room. Notice when I finish, my dimensions are automatically placed. That's because I have my auto exterior dimensions turned on. Now to resize this room, I'm just going to simply click on the wall and move it. I can also highlight the dimension and enter in a specific value. So I'm going to make this 25 foot 2 inches on the exterior. I'm going to highlight this dimension, and I'm going to set that to be 18 foot and a half. Now the next thing that I want to do is I want to come down in the lower area and add the pop out for both the shower and the toilet area. So select the interior wall, and I'll just right click and draw out the shape. Notice my dimensions are automatically updating as I do that. And I'm going to draw one more wall that goes right through the middle of that area. So I'm going to highlight this wall. Again, you can either drag it or highlight the dimension. I'm going to make this 5 foot and a half. And I'm going to highlight this wall over here. And I'm going to set this to be 9 foot 4 and a half. And then the final dimension, I'm just going to select this one, and I'm going to set that to be 6 foot and a half. Scroll out a little bit. Let's use our 3D camera, take our perspective floor overview, and take a look at the rooms. The next thing that I'm going to do is, again, select my wall tool, and I'm just going to draw a wall across the middle of the design. You can do this in your 2D view or in your 3D view, and if I press Shift F6 on the keyboard, you can see both of these. You'll notice my automatic dimensions have updated with that new wall, and to be precise in setting that, I'll have to do that in 2D, and we'll just set that to be 8 foot 6 and a half as well. With the walls in place, I'm now going to turn off my automatic dimensions to avoid clutter. Under my defaults tool, I'm going to double click that, and under auto exterior dimensions, I'm going to remove auto refresh as I add windows. I don't want the dimensions to continue on there. I'm going to do that manually. Notice there's a new feature below in X7 to ignore interior walls. It's kind of a nice option as you're doing the automatic exterior dimensions to avoid that additional clutter. Now that I've turned off that setting, using the window, when I place a window in the wall, the dimensions didn't automatically update. Let's double click on this window and let's make a few changes. First of all, the window that I placed was using a default. It's a double casement window. Chief Architect includes defaults. In fact, you'll notice that my room already has a wall color, a molding, a floor style. Those are all defaults that you can set up in your designs as you begin. You can change them as you go through, but if you find yourself always using a 9-foot ceiling, a certain style of door or window, you can set that as a default in a template or profile plan. Let's make a few modifications to this window. I'm going to make it a fixed glassed window, and then we're going to change the dimensions for the width. Height is fine, floor to bottom is fine. And notice there are other panels that you can change for casing, sill, sash, frame. Several different options that you can set up for your items. I've made that change to the window, and now that it's set, I'm going to use my center tool. My window is still highlighted here, and once it's highlighted, there are some edit tools in the bottom left-hand section of the screen. One of those is the center tool, which I like to use frequently. And I'm going to use that center tool, highlight the room, and click, and now that will center that object exactly in the room. Once I have the style of window that I like, there's a quick tool to make that my default. So all future windows that I place will have that same attribute. Again, in the lower section with the object highlighted, set as default, I will click that, and now as I place additional windows, as I choose that out of the toolbar here, and if I place a few more windows around the design, you'll notice that they have the same attributes as the original window we modified. Next area that I want to do is I want to place our door in between our bathroom and our closet area. And let's go ahead and zoom in here a little bit on both sides. I can do the same editing in 3D that I do in 2D. If I double click on this door and bring up our dialog, you'll see the same type of panel that the window had. And again, I'm going to change the width of this door to be 36. And since I have a 9-foot ceiling, I'm also going to change that to be an 8-foot door. There's the thickness. Same panels we discussed for the window relevant to the door exist, so you can modify those. Select OK. And again, you'll find a tool set as default. So as we place additional items, it will have the same attributes as the door we just went in and modified. Let me remove that door. And now what I want to do is I want to explore our interior dimensions. I'm going to place one more door that will go out to the master bath in this area. And then let's also place one more door in for our closet area. It's a water closet. Since it's going to be a water closet, I'm going to change that to be a pocket door. Select OK, and you'll notice that it's going into the area that's going to be the shower. Let's highlight that door and use the change position. You'll notice that that tool down here, change opening hinge side, is down in the lower section. And then let's also add, let's just pull this wall over here just a little bit. And on this wall, I'm going to use the break tool, and I'm going to notch this out because I'm going to put a glass shower wall in here. Use the break tool, and I'm just going to click that wall. We'll zoom in here just a little bit. Let me turn off my temporary dimensions so you don't see the added dimensions. I'm going to pull that back just a little bit, and if I double click on that wall, let's change the wall type from an interior 6 to a glass shower. And let's verify the thickness of that glass shower. It's a 1/2 inch, and that's fine. Select OK. And I'm going to actually just pull that up just here just a little bit so it's right in the center of that area. I want it set back just slightly off of the wall so I have a slight indent there. Using the door tool, let's place a door in the shower. Again, let's change the hinge side of the door and swing side. And actually you can do it that way. And I'm going to double click on that door. And there's a few things that I'm going to do. One is let's change the style of the door to a slab. I'm not going to use glass because I'm going to use the material painter, and we'll change that to match the exact shower wall. And on the Options tab, I want this to swing both directions. Once I select that, you'll see in a plan view that update, and now I can actually update in the plan view how much that swings open. And again, if you zoom in even further, you can see that my door has casing on it. I forgot to change that when I was in there. So let's go into the casing, and we'll just remove the interior casing off of that. Anything else, if you wanted to remove it, you have the ability to control it right through here, including the hardware. If you wanted to change that to a more of a pull style on that, you could do that as well. Let's pull that door back over near the edge of the wall, and let's also make it a little bit shorter door. We'll go back in to the width, and I'm going to set that to be 32 inches. Select OK. And now I have the main changes for that shower. You can see it here in 3D. Let's use our eyedropper tool, pick up the material off the glass, and we'll apply it on there. And yet one more change that I forgot to do. We were using a 1/2 inch for the wall type, so I'm just going to change the thickness of that door to be a 1/2 inch. So that looks pretty good. And the next thing let's do is inside each of these rooms. If I would have done this for the main room, I would have saved myself a little bit of time. But let's go into the moldings, and let's just delete the moldings off of that area of the room. And as long as I'm in here, we'll name that a bathroom, and remove the moldings off. Now watch when I select OK here. It changed my material to the material that is the default in the template plan. And again, another advantage of setting up your defaults. We'll go ahead and leave the molding in here and in the closet. I want to place the interior dimensions. Let me double click on our plan view and broaden that view. You'll notice that my camera is still being displayed here. I can turn that off in my layers, or I can just close the 3D view up here. Now, one of the things that I want to make sure everybody knows about is we have layer sets in Chief Architect, and you can change those up here with the different layer sets and isolate things if you're doing an electrical plan. If you're a kitchen and bath designer, we have a kitchen and bath set that you can use, and when you do that, it will turn off the wall layers and the dimensions that were automatic for the exterior, and really kind of cleans it up. The other thing is the annotation sets. Annotation sets are specific to Chief Architect Premiere, but you can accomplish the same things really by going into dimension defaults or text defaults, and you can find out a lot more about annotation sets as we have on our video library. I'm going to change my annotation sets, which are going to change the way my dimensions look. If you go back to the default set, you'll notice that my dimensions here are in feet and inches. And now that I've changed my dimension defaults going forward to the NKBA, the National Kitchen and Bath Association, you'll see the way that they are going to look. So let's go back into our kitchen and bath set. And I'm going to use the automatic interior dimensions, and I'm going to have to turn that layer on because my dimensions for automatic are not on. So let's go ahead and turn those on. So that's going to turn on the inside and outside dimensions. Now that created a lot of busy dimensions on here, and probably more so than I wanted to have on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to undo that, and I'm going to just use my manual dimensions. And the first thing is, let's use the interior dimension. Let's just shoot an interior dimension across here. So now you can see my interior dimension, and let's just change it to the regular dimension as I come across here. And it's going to pick up various things as you scroll in. So let's just pick on this a little bit. One, it's picking up the wall surface, which in this case is sheetrock or tile. It's going to the inside of casing, so we're going to know how much wall space we have. It's picking up the wall thickness. And these are all settings you can change. If I double click on our dimension, notice that there's an option here to suppress wall widths. If you want to do that, select OK, and it's going to turn off that wall width. If you don't want to see a dimension on here, you can, let's go over to the onto the door. Let's say that we want to move this door or remove that dimension off of there. All I have to do is click on the diamond and pull it off. So the dimensions are quite flexible in the way you modify them. You can also double click on those dimensions and change the style of your arrow, the height, the font size. You can set up a primary and secondary format, so if you want to include another format, you can choose to have that in feet and inches or whatever dimension you want. So I'm going to pull these dimensions out of the plan. Let's go ahead and highlight that dimension, and I'm just going to simply pull that down here for the time being. Let's add one more dimension across this area right here so we can pick up that door, and we'll also do the same thing over here to pick up the window. Remember, we used the center tool on that window, and you can see that that dimension is centered inside of that room with 18 3/8 inches on either side. One final thing on dimensions, let's go ahead and use our wall elevation. And let's shoot a wall elevation. This is going to be our major sink wall, so I'm going to use our wall elevation tool and take a wall elevation of that. And again, you can use your dimensions simply by coming through here, drawing a line. If I pull that down, you can get your dimensions that way. I'm going to press delete. There's another tool up here called Automatic Exterior Dimensions. If I click that, it's going to place all of the dimensions for you. Again, if you find a dimension that you don't want, let's highlight this dimension, pull it off of the casing of the top of the door, just slide it off. It's gone. You can also grab the diamond and pull it on and pick up a dimension that it may miss. Let's close that elevation. And I'm going to save that camera. Back into our 3D view here. Let's change our materials so we can begin our design work for the Vanity. In our library browser, you'll find both custom, well, we call them core libraries, bonus libraries. These are libraries that are available from chiefarchitect.com and our 3D library. You can download various bonus libraries that you want. And then manufacturer libraries, which again are available from chiefarchitect.com and the 3D library. Scroll down here and find our Dale Tile library, and I want to change the color of the flooring in our rooms. So I'm going to highlight our library for ceramic, and I'm going to find a color that I like. And I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to apply that to the different rooms that I want it in. And actually for the shower room, let's find a different style flooring. I believe that's from Stratastone. Let's find our Stratastone catalog. And I'm just going to go with this Aberdeen, and I'm just going to click in that room and apply that onto the flooring material. Here's a tip about bathrooms in particular. You'll notice in my bathroom that I have a glass wall, And in my main room, if I highlight our main room here, you'll see that my surrounding area, my shower door is set back. If we come into our paint one of our paint companies, let's grab, oh, I have my filter on. Let's set that up so I can grab something like Benjamin Moore Paints. And if we grab one of the colors in here, and I click in the room and I paint it, let's zoom around and let's take a look and see what happened to our glass wall. It had the effect that I absolutely don't want. It painted the entire room and it included that glass wall. So let me undo that and let's go back to the original color. You can open up individual walls and you can change colors. And if you double click on the wall, there's a materials tab and there's an exterior surface and an interior wall surface. So you can go wall by wall and do that. But that's more time consuming. So in bathrooms, what I do, let me tile my views by pressing Shift F6 on the keyboard. And I'll just zoom in. You'll notice my glass shower wall is set back a little bit. To save time, I'm going to use a room divider tool, which is made to set up room definition. And I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to create room division. We'll turn on our invisible walls. And let's delete that label. Now when I highlight the room, you'll notice that it is missing this small segment. And in our 3D view, when I come in and apply a color into the room, it will no longer get that exterior wall. Now since I'm going to put tile on the wall, I don't really care about that color, or I could go in and do it on an individual wall by wall basis. The main thing I wanted to show here is if you just have a glass shower wall and you paint the room, you may end up getting the individual glass. So you can delete this wall that we just drew in here, and you can open up the wall and we can change that and get the same result. So if you don't want to have that wall set back, we can go into the materials and choose the exterior or interior surface. Select our material, go into Plan Materials, find our glass, and I'll just do that for the both things. Find glass, select OK, and it will return it back to the original color. I selected a slightly different color glass, so let's use our material painter and grab the material off of that wall and apply it onto the door. So again, if you have a shower with a glass wall in your room and you paint your room, it turns your glass a solid color. You can either set your glass wall back, use a room divide tool like I did, or you can individually select that wall and change the materials as well. Let's finalize the dimensions before we move on and place our vanity cabinet. Let's maximize the plan view, press F6 on the keyboard, and I'm going to close that camera view as well. Let's go ahead and highlight these dimensions in here. I'm going to just remove this dimension off of this door. And I want to get the dimension for the inside of our shower and our water closet. I'm going to highlight the door, or sorry, the wall, and I'm going to type in the dimension. Let's set that to be 45 inches. And let's slide our door back over. In fact, let's just use our center tool, center that inside of the room. And let's do the same thing on this dimension. Let's pull that dimension off of the edge of the door. And let's click on that door and slide it over. Now you can go around and finish up the dimensions as I have done in the completed plan, just simply by dragging your dimension tool across the different areas and using the diamonds to add and place or remove dimensions. So that wraps up the floor plan, placing our doors, windows, and walls and adding our dimensions. Let's move on to the next video segment of creating our sink wall with our custom vanity.